Good evening. This is Joe Core, Superintendent, North County. We are joining again tonight for the Parents Advisory Council, and we are a bit in between stage here, where we're continuing to gather data and moving forward. And I think when we gather next week, we'll have even more specifics to share with you. But why don't we go right to the screen share right now, and we'll take a look at our agenda for the evening. Okay, and again, I think most people are aware of the Parents Advisory Council, a group who gathers together volunteers of parents, students from the community to advise the superintendent and the district on procedures, policies impacting the education and life of our district. So let's go to our agenda for tonight. And this week, we had on Friday, right after the PAC meeting, we had a meeting with Dr. Whalen, and that included all the superintendents from the 11 public school districts in the county, plus charter schools, private schools, and parochial schools. And we have an update from Dr. Whalen. This week, Governor Cuomo released an update on athletics, so I'm going to talk briefly on that. We're going to talk about the survey, the update, and the next steps. And then, we know that there's been some confusion around class sizes in grades 4 through 6 over at with regards to students from Fort Ferry and Southgate. We want to clear that up, and then we have some more of our frequently asked questions. So it's not as lengthy or as comprehensive as this evening, but hopefully we have some information that will be useful for you and helpful as we go forward, as we start up the school year. So why don't we go to the next slide? As we mentioned here, all Albany County school leaders, we met with the Commissioner of Health in Albany County, Dr. Elizabeth Whalen, and that was on Friday, August 21. And so here is some of the good news that Dr. Whalen presented us with. So I think the point that she wished to emphasize here was that we are experiencing a very low positivity rate in Albany County. And it is less than 1% and has remained below 1% for a number of years. I think we're pushing number of days, not years, but we're pushing 3 weeks on that now. And that 0.7% continues to stay under 1%, even though we do a high volume of testing within the county. Dr. Whalen stated that the low positivity rate was related to the fact that this is a community where there is a high level of awareness and knowledge about COVID-19. And in particular, this is a community who is well aware of the procedures, the protocols that individuals need to practice to keep themselves safe and to keep others safe. So essentially, these include the health screening and the remaining home when ill, using the mask, using a face covering, social distancing of 6 feet or more, and environmental controls. So that's deep cleaning, sanitizing, and also practicing good personal hygiene protocols such as hand washing and the like. So that was good news. And I think in this area in particular, and probably throughout much of the state, people have a strong awareness of how the virus is spread and what they need to do to stay safe. And in this state, we have developed strong capacity, and this is the collaboration that exists with the New York State Department of Health and the local Albany County Department of Health. And we really do have the ability and the personnel to test and trace right now when the need arises. And some of the procedures and protocols around testing, such as the saliva test, will hopefully be available and to impact our capacity to test even more. And that's, that is good news as well. Dr. Whalen stated that the county is really in a good space for opening schools and complimented the districts and the schools within the region on their reopening plans, and stated really that, in her opinion, delaying an opening does not have any benefit at this time. Some other good news too. She expressed confidence in the Albany County Department of Health, stated that they do have adequate staffing, that they have and will continue to work collaboratively with the school districts in Albany County. And, I have experienced that firsthand in the extended school year, summer school, where we did have a positive case, and the relationship and the working with the county was very collaborative and very easy to do. And Dr. Whalen also noted that on her team, she has a team of epidemiologists, she has nurses, she has case investigators who are a part of the process of doing contact tracing, and has been training a team of contact tracers, and those contact tracers are ready and available to work with us as the schools of Albany County when we have a positive case identified. Basically, Dr. Whalen stated that the first call, as per our plan, should be to the county, because the county does have the capacity to do contact tracing, and we would work together with them as they do their investigation. And they do have funding to hire extra tracers if needed. She also wanted to emphasize too that the County Department of Health does not do specific testing. There is a state testing site over at the University at Albany, and that is where the county has been arranging for individuals who are identified as direct contacts to go and get expedited results. And essentially, when a person is referred to the county, the state works with the county to the extent possible to turn tests around within 24 hours. And if we do have a positive case identified in school, the County Department of Health, Albany County Department of Health, will assist districts with getting expedited testing results. So she stated the current protocols and shared them for Albany County schools, and they included how do we evaluate symptomatic students and staff, and what the evaluation procedures would be, the response that we should be making when someone tests positive for COVID-19. And these protocols will be written down and released to the schools, but prior to meeting them, they will be finalized with Dr. Zucker, New York State Department of Health Commissioner, and other county commissioners, so that we can deal with some uniformity in the protocols across the state. And once that meeting has occurred, she can review those protocols, and we anticipate receiving them as she promised to send them out to each and every district. So in terms of the steps of evaluating symptomatic students, the first one would be home screening and temperature check. And that is part of our process here for attestation. But step two would be for students who do not have the attestation, were unable to make it, or forgot, or maybe don't have
Mr. Corey, you've muted.
Okay, there we go. Ms. Gills, do you know where was I at step 2 at Attestation?
Yes, you are.
Okay, so again, if students who do not have the attestation, those students will be sent to the nurse for a temperature check when they arrive to school. And if a student has a fever greater than 100 degrees, that student will be isolated, and we've designated rooms for that in each and every school until there is a parent and guardian pickup. So the other step that we have, step 3, is that a student who is sent to the nurse during the day will be observed and evaluated by the nurse for COVID-19 symptoms. So if that student is symptomatic, that student must then stay home for 10 days or provide a note from a healthcare provider with an alternative diagnosis and or a negative test result for reentry. Now, this is where the guidance is right now. This guidance may change. The options are remain home for 10 days, provide a note from the health provider with an alternative diagnosis. So that would be, well, it wasn't COVID, it was the flu, or produce a negative test result, and that would qualify for reentry. And the school district will assist parents and also work with the county parents and guardians for information regarding testing locations. So they could be SUNY, the Whitney Young Health Center, WellNow, and any one of locations throughout the area. We were told, and this is the case, okay, that the school district or Albany County Department of Health, we cannot mandate a COVID-19, but certainly the county will work closely with individuals to provide them opportunities to go to places where they would not have to do a copay. Now, Dr. Whalen also stressed protocols if a student or employee tests positive. So again, if we have a student or staff member who tests positive, we will notify the district, but we will obviously be protecting the identity of individuals due to their HIPAA rights. If we have a confirmed case, and that will immediately trigger an investigation and contact tracing by the Albany County Department of Health. For the individual identified as positive and for the individual identified as a contact, there will be an isolation order that will be issued. It will be enforced by the County Department of Health. Immediate contacts will be notified by the county, and that will be also a collaborative effort with the school district. And they will be notified by the County Department of Health trained contact tracers to quarantine for 14 days. That's a legal order. We, again, can recommend testing, but we can't mandate individuals to get tested, and the contact of a contact does not have to quarantine. So if you remember here, a contact is identified really as anybody who has had direct contact with someone for 15 minutes or longer. Now, if you are not in that category, but you may have had association with someone who has been identified as a known contact, that constitutes being a contact of a contact, and the process of testing or asking someone encouragement of testing does not occur. But an individual can choose to have a test, and maybe that is a wise thing to do. That individual who is not the direct contact, but may be the contact of a contact, is not required to quarantine. So again, we're going to notify our community. We're going to notify them of that there has been a positive case and where it's been located, but of course not the identity of the person. And schools may be asked to close for a 24-hour period after notification of a positive test to sanitize and work with the Albany County Department of Health on contact tracing. This is not required. It will be decided case by case. We do sanitization every evening in the schools, so that's going to be a matter of course. But if the Dr. Whalen and the county decide that we would be wise for us to close for 24 hours, we will of course follow suit. So absenteeism. So I think what to expect, and Dr. Whalen wanted to stress that we should expect that we will have increased absenteeism from students as the symptoms for allergy, the symptoms for common cold, GI viruses. These are all similar to the symptoms of COVID-19. And if children demonstrate these symptoms, they will be asked to stay home unless they can obtain a note from their healthcare provider, and that would be attesting to an underlying condition that causes them to present some symptoms, all symptoms of COVID-19, or if they produce a negative COVID-19 test. Teachers and staff with symptoms that mirror COVID-19 should also secure a note from a medical provider or a negative COVID-19 test prior to returning to work. So we have similar procedures there. Masking. So again, this is one of the pillars here of prevention. So to reduce COVID-19, CDC recommends people wear masks in public settings and when around people outside their direct household, especially when other social distancing measures are difficult to maintain. And Dr. Whalen believes, and just a little bit of advice, that we should work with our children to get them into the mask wearing habit, similar to hand washing, coughing and sneezing etiquette, all those other healthy habits. That's something that we should be stressing all the time. So mask breaks, of course, are necessary as students are getting used to wearing masks for extended period of time. And having the children bring a brown paper bag or a plastic zip bag to put their masks on while on breaks or eating is recommended to avoid contamination. And we, of course, will be supplying replacement masks should that be needed. So we have a question here. When we notify of location, will that be just the building? I ask because for the junior high, it might be helpful to know which elementary wing so parents can be extra diligent in keeping an eye on their children. That's a good point, and I think we could certainly accommodate that. So athletics. So we had an update from the governor, and let me go to what that was. And so this was some big news of the week, and I can have some clarity around that as well. So this week, the governor announced that activities that were identified as lower risk, school-sponsored sports, may begin practice and play September 21. So some of the lower risk sports would be identified as golf, soccer. It was lower to moderate risk activities, cross country, field hockey is identified as one, and those are examples of what we consider lower risk sports. Travel for practice or play would be prohibited outside the school's region or contiguous regions or counties until October 19. The capital region, this is not necessarily section 2, but the capital region is identified as part of the governor's plan. So I think that's the region he would be referring to here. Higher risk sports, and that would be, for example, football, can practice on September 1, but can't play until a later designated date, or December 31. And there is talk here about altering some of the seasons to allow that to happen. So there is guidance that comes from the New York State Department of Health on sports activities. We are going to follow that guidance. And if we go, we have some more to add here on athletics. And so again, you know, the identified lower, and I forgot to include a couple of here. So specifically, the lower and moderate risk sports for the fall season will include tennis. They will obviously include soccer, cross country, field hockey, and swimming is allowed. And so the higher risk sports for the fall season would be football, wrestling. We don't have rugby. We do have hockey, and we do have volleyball. And these could be individual practices or group, but no to low contact training. So it would be, you know, for football, they could begin practice. Perhaps they could have conditioning workouts. They could run plays without contact, but that is what they will be allowed to do after September 21. If a sport is going to take place indoors, there can be no more than 50% occupancy, and spectators have to be limited to no more than 2 per player. And of course, spectators would be required to follow social distancing and face covering protocols. So now we have the survey results. And Ms. Skeels is a good reminder here that, you know, this is the process of planning is ongoing. It's variable, it's changing. We have to balance our limitations with regard to physical space, with regard to staff, because of course, within a social distancing environment, we require more staff because we can only fit so many students in a room. So here is where we are, and you know, we're cleaning up some of the issues here with the survey right now. And as you can imagine, when you survey many people, there are duplicates. Sometimes people are filling out our survey who are not district residents, which I thought was interesting. And you know, so we're working and cleaning up that and making sure it is as accurate as possible. But if we take a look at by levels, we have 2,050 elementary students, or 73.63% requesting in person, 734 requesting in remote. That's a rate of 26.37. 7-8, 627 students requesting in person, 75.91%. It represents the fraction of that, or the percentage of that. 199 are in remote, or about 24%. In 9-12, 1,359. That's a little over 78%. 383 in remote, or almost 22%. And so that gives us totals for 4,036 in person, or about 75.4% requesting to come in either in person or some form of the hybrid. 1,316 in remote, that's 24.59%. So that's where we are with the survey. So what we need to do now is to use this data to assign students to different sections, to assign teachers to either remote teaching or some version of either in-person or hybrid teaching. That's a process. And so we're going to be scheduling on that. And what I would like to stress with everybody is that, this is a lengthy process, and it's a process that changes. And we really don't anticipate getting schedules out until the week after Labor Day. Okay, so there were some concerns that were raised with regards to grades 4 through 6 class sizes at Shaker Junior High School. And so we've mentioned in the previous PAC meetings that, again, when we get surveys, we would begin to balance. We would begin to look at how we assign students and teachers so that we can do some alignment of who will be in person and who will be a remote, and align accordingly. So we are working through this process right now. So I want to be clear and state this plainly. There will be no cohorts of 30 students in grades 4 through 6 from Southgate or Forts Ferry or from any school. So I just want to make that clear. There will be no cohorts of 30 students. And the issue is, part of the balancing that we must do is we have to efficiently utilize our staff and our physical space. We have to use all the available space at Shaker Junior High School. That includes science rooms and innovation spaces, which are located throughout the building. So that would impact all 6 elementary schools, as well as the library, which is beautiful, and the new music classrooms, which are also beautiful. So to give you a sense of what this will look like, that is giving us greater square footage than the average classroom in those spaces. So for example, an average classroom is about 770 square feet. That is where we put 15 students or accommodate 15 students in that space. An innovation space would be 1,000 square feet. And so in those larger spaces, we can accommodate 18 students, not 30, but 18 students with very comfortable social distancing. And that was mentioned in our plan. Our plan mentioned 15, and that was the plan that we submitted to New York State Education Department and New York State Department of Health on July 31st. So when we finalize this, we will update that. I do apologize for you for the confusion and any anxiety that caused. Okay, but these are the facts on this right now. So now we have survey results in. We are working hard. Mr. Chamberlain is working hard at the junior high school to engage in the actual space planning, and we will continue to update our plan accordingly. So we'll be back on another meeting, a PAC meeting a week from today. So this would be one of the items that we would have more information on then. So this gives you an indication. This is a science room, a lab space. And so that foot room with 18 classrooms. Okay, so that is that room socially distanced. They're really beautiful rooms. They have LED lighting in them. They're brand new. It's a very nice space. So this brings us now to our frequently asked questions. And so we have some instructional questions. So I will defer to Ms. Skeels on this one. So the first question, what is the platform or program for the remote synchronous instruction? Guidance says that it will be standardized and high quality remote learning, but what does that mean?
That's a great question. So we are using the Google suite of tools. So Google Classroom will still be the platform that we use. Most of our students from grades 3 and up are already familiar with that, even grades 2 and up. They start learning Google Classroom in grade 2, and we'll be using Seesaw in the kindergarten and first grade. It's a little bit easier for our students because it has less text and more picture icons. So that's more appropriate for our youngest learners. And in terms of what does it mean to have high quality remote learning, number one, for us, that means that there will be more live lessons. So teachers can use either Google Meet or they can use Zoom as their platform. They can also use a range of tools in order to make those classroom sessions interactive so that they can use the breakout rooms in Zoom. They can use polling in Zoom. They can have opportunities for students to get some instruction, do some work, and then come back to the teacher. Next week, as part of our presentation, we will have some of our supervisors share some of their slides. They have been meeting with their departments and going over best practices for remote instruction, how we decided what the curriculum is, what lessons should look like, how we can best use our time. Math has done a presentation for their department, ELA has done a presentation. So we'll share some of those ideas. They are different depending obviously on the subject area slightly, but the goal is that it doesn't look like the spring when we were in the emergency remote learning, which was a lot of pre-recorded videos that weren't always our teachers. A lot of them were open source software. So they were coming from YouTube and other places. It will be more than just posting in a Google Classroom. So there'll be more time for students to talk to their teachers, see their classmates, talk to their classmates, ask questions. And we'll give you a preview of that next week. The next question about why is there no plan to do any instruction outdoors? I wouldn't say there isn't any plan. Obviously, we have lots of great spaces around some of our schools, and some of our teachers use that regularly, even pre-pandemic. We will certainly use it after the pandemic. We have not invested in tenting and things like that for a number of reasons. First of all, we had to go through an approval process with state ed that we thought would be difficult with timing, and also obviously being aware of the weather in the Northeast and that expense to be able to make a few classes for a little bit of time. We do have enough of our classrooms to be able to keep our students socially distant. Mr. Core, is there anything more you want to add about the tents for the outside?
Well, a couple things, that's exactly correct, Ms. Gill. So I think, the other issue too is a tent has to go through a New York State Education Department approval process. So it is an expedited process, but it is one more step. It is a plan that is good when the weather is good. And as you stated, around here, we can rely on decent weather probably to the end of October. It is not a permanent solution by any means. And so, we will, certainly, when there are opportunities and students can go outside, that certainly is a possibility. And certainly for physical education, when the weather is nice, we will be outside.
The next question is, will there be enough substitutes for in-person or remote learning if teachers are sick or experiencing COVID-19 symptoms? Substitutes will be a challenge. They were a challenge before the pandemic in terms of finding enough substitutes in the region. It will continue to be a challenge. We continue to work to have our own North Colony substitute workforce so that they are specific to our district and specific to our building. So our HR department is working hard right now to develop a full staff of substitutes that we can potentially have in place. For remote learning, our expectation is that if a teacher is sick for an individual day, as opposed to somebody being out for a length of time, obviously, but an individual day here or there, that they would post to their students in Google Classroom, and on that day, they would post videos or homework, and there wouldn't be a live lesson on that day. The next question is, will there be packets or handouts in some classes? And I'm not sure exactly. So a couple things. Number one, we will have for students who are in remote, if this is part of the question, we will have, just like we had supply drop off in the spring when you had to return materials, we'll have a system in the fall for you to be able to come and pick up materials if you need books or any kinds of materials from the school. If this is regarding in person, we are going as paperless as possible. That doesn't mean we'll be 100% paperless, but we certainly strive to do that just to be environmentally friendly in the first place, and also just to reduce kids having to get up and pick up packets. So we will have a system where we're not handing them out and kids aren't, touching one another as they pass papers out, but we will keep that to a minimum. But we will have materials for students on their desks if they need them prior to getting into a class.
Thank you, Ms. Skeels. So now we have some health and safety questions. And so the first question, when will the district be rolling out the Attestation app? How will we learn how to use it? Ms. Julie Scriven is on our call tonight, and she is our Director of IT. So Julie, do you want to handle that?
Sure. We recently purchased an attestation app called Pinpoint on instructions, and we'll probably have something in the PAC meeting next week, as well as in some school messenger messages that will be going out. But the basic gist of the system is that in the morning, you'll receive either a text message or an email or both that will have a link in it to the survey for the day, which you will click on and answer a few short questions and hit submit, and you're done. And when you get done with the survey, it tells you if your child had a fever or any issues that they should stay home. It gives you basically instructions on what to do. We just purchased the product. We are rapidly trying to put it in place. Should be hopefully in place by sometime next week, definitely before our staff comes back for the new year.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Scriven. And yeah, we are looking forward to hearing about that. Mr. Barden, you're on the call, correct?
I am, Mr. Core.
In the extended year summer school, did you have any opportunity to practice fire drills or any safety drills?
We did. We completed 2 fire drills in the summertime, and both of them, went accordingly.
Can you tell us a little bit about, how our students practiced those drills, what it was like?
Sure. So really, what we do is we just identified spaces and exits as to where students would exit the building, where they would stand and be located, and then, just talk through the re-entry of the building and how to social distance the best we can while exiting and entering the building. So it's slightly different than a normal fire drill, but we did our best to kind of exit as quickly as possible, but also maintain social distancing the best we could.
So we would look at maintaining social distancing as best we could, masking, okay, and identifying specific exit ways for us to go and alternatives should they be blocked. And then in addition to that, students have a mask, social distance, and we are going outside. So again, I think those are all positives to enable us to do that. The same.
I think the other important piece is just to maximize the number of exits that we have, to really distance as much as possible. Typically, we would identify just a few exits, but within our summer program, we try to maximize the number of exits that we are utilizing to minimize the number of students.
Thank you. Thank you. So the next question, it's been stated that for lunch, PE, and other activities, that students may remove their masks. Where will students keep their masks at these times? So again, students to place their mask in. If masks get soiled, okay, of course we have replacement masks for students. Any skills, or do you have anything you want to add to this at all?
We know that some parents have been thinking about like
Lanyard,
a,
yeah.
a lanyard type system where the child could have the mask right there. And depending on the age of the child, that could be appropriate. We brought that up with Dr. Whalen. Her one worry was depending on, again, what you think is the appropriate age for your child, that perhaps for some younger children, if it was hanging, it might bang up against a desk and then bang up against a wall and then be more easy. It might be more easy for it to get soiled than if they put it in a container, a bag, a box, whether it's plastic or like a brown paper lunch bag. She thought that was an easier way to do it. But certainly, parents could do a lanyard or something like that. There are some devices out there that they can kind of put it down around their neck. But just to be careful with that, because that could make it more likely to be contaminated.
Thank you. And we'll go to a music question here. So in the past, we've been allowed to drop instruments were available as loaner instruments to use during the school, so that a large instrument like a cello didn't have to be transported. Will either still be possible? So yes, we will have some loaner instruments available, and it's likely we'll have a large number of them available, but we won't have after hours. So for example, if the students have departed by 4 o'clock and our crews are in there doing deep cleaning, we would not allow someone to come into a classroom and drop something off. But if someone wished to drop something off during school hours, that could be accommodated. So that would be in the hours where the students are actually occupying the building. But once the students leave for the day, the building will be locked and closed. There will be no after-school activities at this point, other than athletics. So we really have to control access to the building as much as possible, keep it safe. So some other questions. Ms. Skeels, do you want to take the first one? Will the new 9:45 start time continue for the entire school year?
As long as we are in the current configuration and current arrangement, due to COVID-19, yes, it will.
And the next question here is, since we're starting school late, will school be ending later if there are snow days? The answer is we have built in a 183-day school year. So that means that we have 3 snow days. So this is just like any other year.
But we do have to hit that 180 days.
We have to hit 180. So if we, for some reason, if we go below that 180, then, we would be compelled to make an adjustment of sorts. Yes.
The next question is, why will students now attending junior high be having a new building orientation, but K students will not when it is also a new building for them? We will be having a kindergarten student orientation. It will be the first week that the teachers are in school. So it will be that Thursday, and I just drew a blank on the date. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at my calendar. It will be Thursday, the 10th. And building principals will be talking to parents and sharing a schedule so that you can come in. We're going to break out several hours where you can come in and see the school, see the classroom, but over several hours so that we can bring people in small groups and keep it socially distanced and safe. But we will absolutely have a K orientation. We realize this is a big step for your child. And although this is a very different kind of school year, it's still an amazing step. It's still your child's first start of their journey and their education in North Colony. And we will absolutely honor our kindergarten orientation. Next question is, where will the students in grades 4 through 6 keep supplies at the new middle school? And they will, if they have a backpack, they will be able to bring a backpack for some daily materials. And then we will have space within the classrooms available that will be their space where they can keep their supplies. And Mr. Core, the last question is regarding sports. If you plan to allow sports per the governor's announcement, what restrictions do you plan to put in place that will allow kids to play safely to avoid a potential outbreak?
Okay, so Section 2 is we are a part of Section 2. The New York State Public High Schools Athletic Association has divided the state in two different sections. Section 2 has a COVID task force. That COVID task force is working now on the safety procedural plan. Mr. Stein is a part of that. And so those procedural facets are now being worked upon.
I believe that's your last question, Mr. Core.
Okay, so I think we can flip back to the PAC here.
Surely.
Okay, do you have any additional questions here? I don't know how we're doing in the chat here. Let me see.
I have been keeping up with some, Mr. Core. I might have missed some, but I have been trying to keep up with some.
I think there was a question about remote students and picking up supplies. Am I correct on that?
Yes, so we haven't had that yet. We will have coming up right after Labor Day, we will have a specific parent meeting for parents of students who are in remote instruction. So we will go through those things. We will have that organized, and we will make sure that if there are materials that you need, you will be able to pick them up before your children begin school. And we'll go through some of those details for that organization.
And yeah, Dina added something. It might be helpful to remind parents to look at the district website for Q&A info. We've got a lot of pages there rather than social media to avoid confusion. And we do have a lot of the scenarios covered there. And I think, you know, that is a good point as well.
And Mr. Chamberlain is also saying that there will be a meeting for families in grades 4 through 6 coming up next week. I don't know, Mr. Chamberlain, if you want to speak to that at all, but that was asked in the chat and answered by Mr. Chamberlain.
The question is, what about snow days? We have built snow days into the calendar.
Did you want Mr. Chamberlain to speak to the 4 to 6 meeting? I'm sorry, Mr. Core.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, go right ahead.
So we'll send that out tomorrow. It's going to be Thursday at 6. So Thursday the 3rd at 6. I think there's a meeting on the 2nd, another meeting for K3 if I recall correctly. So we were going to do it Thursday at 6. Just working on the format because I think we're going to have quite a number of people with interest. So we're going to have to working on figuring out that format because I don't think Zoom will accommodate probably everyone's needs. So we're working on that. But we'll get that out tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yes, and there was a question about providing more specific guidance is preferable for masking and not. Question, when will bus routes come out? I think that is part of the process here that we're working through right now. Actually, Denise Town, our Director of Transportation, and her staff is probably farther along. That may be one of the most advanced work that has been done here. But again, I would say towards the end of next week and certainly the week of Labor Day weekend. Do apologize for that, but this is an evolving situation and we need to get our data straight, and that is straight with online teachers, straight with teachers who are in person or in hybrid, and much work still to be done, but we are up to doing hard things and we will get them done. Any additional questions from our Parents Advisory Council?
There's some question about if Julie could speak about Chromebook pickup if people have not had a chance to pick up Chromebooks yet.
Sorry, I was muted.
It's okay.
We are frantically cleaning and disinfecting some of the Chromebooks that were turned back in so that we can turn them around and hand them back out. So we've kind of had them quarantined for a little bit. We plan on a day next week, and I hope to have an answer today, but we should be posting tomorrow the dates for our pickups next week. So grade 2 will be next week, as well as a a makeup day for grades 3 through 5. We realized we did a lot of the pickups last week in the morning, so we're going to try and do afternoon and evening for those people who have difficulty coming in the morning. And then the following week, we will have yet another pickup for K through 1, and I believe new students as well, and a makeup day for anybody else who hasn't picked theirs up.
Will remote learners follow closures and delays as well as in person? And the answer is yes, they are all on the same calendar. Do we have any indication on the bus capacity and flexibility if buses are needed infrequently? I think, that again is an evolving situation. I believe of the respondents who would be using buses, it's somewhere around between 60 and 65% bus use capacity. Ms. Town is working on developing what that is, and we will see what kind of flexibility we have. That is to be determined. Are the school supplies the same for remote and in-person learners? I would say yes and no, and it depends. So there certainly could be different, and that certainly would be made clear. Julie, will 7th and 8th graders get new Chromebooks?
7th and 8th graders will not get new Chromebooks this year.
And Michelle, will there be AIS services daily in 4-6? So, I see. Yeah. Essentially, Mr. Chamberlain is responding to that question. We have greater flexibility how we operate our AIS model, so we further position staff. We will determine our AS model. Good question. Could be more push-in services, working more directly on tier 1 instruction and the like. When will the decision for school supplies be made for remote versus in person? I would think that would again be something that would probably be determined later next week or in the week after Labor Day as well.
For right now, though, I think one of the things we can think about is that students who are remote learners are still North Colony learners.
Right.
You're just sort of in a little bit of a different school, right? But you're still a North Colony learner. So if you are a 2nd grader or an 8th grader or an 11th grader, your school supplies in remote school are going to be comparable, just like your educational program will be comparable to the school supplies that you would get in when you are in person. So I know I've seen the sale ads. I know that. I know I like to get out when those items are on sale, so I understand that. But I think that the typical school supplies for the grade level will be perfectly suitable for the remote school as well.
Okay, Karen has a question. I'm not following how the in-person students that have to stay home will get weaved into remote instruction. Also, will there be an administrator name for remote instruction in the district? We, plan on designating an administrator to be responsible for remote instruction. Could be an administrators. Following how the in-person students that have to stay home will get weaved into the remote instruction.
So in other words, if you're out for a single day, right? Like we're all used to that in our typical world. Your child is out sick for a day, maybe 2 days, they go back to school, they make up their work. That's the world we know. But I think one of the concerns is, what if a child has to be out for 10 days or 14 days because they are quarantined? And obviously the first question is, if they're quarantined, are they well enough to participate? If they are well enough to participate, we are leaving room in remote instruction, because one of the things we have heard repeatedly from the state, from our regional leadership, through our district superintendent, right down to our meeting with Dr. Whalen, is that we have to be very fluid and flexible this year. And so that work, and that is part of the reason to have an administrator looking at the remote school who can be in sync with the schools that are in person. So our academic supervisors are working right now, as I mentioned before, on the prioritized learning standards so that they'll be consistent Will it be exactly the same? No, but will a child be able to move in and have time? So if they are out for 10 days, they don't have 10 days of learning loss. We don't want that. And we don't know how fluid, we really don't know how fluid the situation will be. We just know that we have been told to be prepared for that eventuality. And so to be prepared for that, we are not filling our remote classes to capacity right from the beginning of the year, because we want to have room in those remote classes. Students need to come in so that they can get some practice, they can get some contact with the teacher, they can get some assistance on schoolwork. So we're working through those details. That is a fluid process. It certainly will be challenging, but on the other hand, the thought that a student could be out for 14 days and then have to make all that up, especially if they're quarantined because they were in contact with someone but were still well and able to do schoolwork, we don't want them to have that learning loss.
Next one would be for Mr. Barden. Will students with IEPs be lumped together in cohorts for the consultant teacher support?
No, so they won't be lumped together. What we will stick with our same approach in trying to organize students with appropriate fits in homerooms, and then work with our principals and then our consultant teachers to make sure that we're supporting with a number of students that are manageable. So we're not looking to lump students all in one cohort to support consultant teacher. We're still working through our same process where we'll organize students appropriately in each homeroom.
Question from Tabassum: will after-school help be available for high schoolers in the hybrid model? That would be, that would be our intention. It may not be after school though. Okay, it could also be during office hours or some sort of assigned supervision duty that a faculty member might have. It could also be part of the 55 minutes. It could be part of the remote instruction. I think we have a lot of flexibility there where we could provide extra help. Let me see here. Will after-school help be available for high schoolers in the hybrid model? Yes, I did answer that. Okay, good. Jenna, if the entire classroom is quarantined, will the teacher, if healthy to do so, switch to remote learning as a class? And I would think that if a class is in quarantine, that would be the solution. Do you have any feel yet for how consultant teacher support might be provided to remote learners?
Sure, so I can answer that. So this will be, special education teachers working closely and collaboratively with the general education teacher. And if, for example, if teachers are running a Zoom session, then we will work to provide consultant teacher through breakout sessions and small group sessions. Once initial instruction has been delivered, then we will work with the classroom teacher to, provide small group instruction and then breakout sessions for, for that lesson.
And from Karen, I'm getting some, and that is a good, excellent point, as Ms. Skeels indicated you, Karen. But with regard to substitute teachers and an increased use of that, substitute teachers still have to go through the background check process before they can be employed. And that means that they submit that for a background check by the New York State Education Department. So those processes and procedures remain unchanged. Any further information on music for remote learners? Just simply that, we're going to plan for opportunities for remote learners, and, Ms. Keel will get back to us with more specifics on that. Any other questions? Well, this week we are about an hour and a half shorter than we have been in the past, just out of an curiosity here. Brian. Wow, that's great. That's awesome. That's awesome. So definitely we will be back next week, next Thursday, with another Parents Advisory Council meeting. And, yes, we could bring it to network TV. And that would be an idea. Maybe we can also get into reruns of this at some time. Actually, you can, you can get it on demand from our website. So in any case, that would be good. So again, I want to thank all our staff and administrators who were on the call. Thank you very much always for your support, for our PAC, for your unwavering and total commitment to this process. Again, always many thanks to you for the 550 in our community. So many thanks to you for your interest in our schools and for the feedback and the questions that you have. And please keep them coming in. If you have them, please contact us, and we will get back in touch with you. So thank you. Thank you all, and have a great evening and a wonderful
Thank you.
weekend. Take care.